welcome to an evening of special significance as we honor Jim Hinson. Yes. On the occasion of his retirement from the Dr. Phillips charity, we are so glad that you all could be here with us tonight to congratulate Jim on his 50 years of service to Dr. Phillips and the Central Florida community, to recognize his personal impact on many individuals and organizations, to highlight the leadership and vision that he has brought to countless community projects, and to wish him many new opportunities as well as some rest and relaxation too in his retirement. I know you're all thinking, yeah, right. Now, I'll never forget the first time my path crossed with Jim Hinson, and then of course that led to meeting his lovely wife Rita and later on family members. But the first time Jim and I spoke on the telephone some 15 years or more ago, Ann Manley would remember, he invited me to join a number of other people in the community to distribute charitable funds through what was then called the Howard Phillips Fund Review Committee. He described to me what the committee did. He said they decided who to give money to, assist various charities that were struggling and needed help, and then he told me how much they wanted to distribute. Well, my business can attract some pretty cynical people in the newsroom, as you might imagine, because often the only calls we get are the calls about problems that people have and people who have done some pretty silly things and then end up on a newscast. The only phone calls we ever get are from people who are begging for money. One time I got a call from a man who begged me to please deposit $8,000 into his bank account. He said he needed it to pay off some more bills that didn't get paid from the first $8,000 that I had deposited into his account. And I'm thinking, I do not remember ever doing anything like that. Or we got calls from people who wanted to complain about not being able to keep their money for whatever reason. We never got calls from people who wanted to give away money. And I can remember thinking to myself on the telephone with Jim, okay, now you're just going to give away thousands of dollars and you want me to help you decide who to give it to because you can't decide, so you just don't know who to give it to. That's a good problem to have. I like phone calls like that. So I accepted a seat on the committee, and I said to myself, I have to meet this man who says his organization is going to do this, and I want to see if it's for real. Well, not only was it for real, I found out very quickly that Jim Hinson was the real McCoy, all through the discussion and decision process of where and when that money would be spent and how it would benefit the most people and do the most good. At the end of the process, I observed a man who received genuine joy when he saw a children's organization get the equipment it desperately needed, or a group that helps the elderly or the handicapped get a way to transport their clients. He was pleased in being able to bridge the gap for an organization where something so simple as a copy machine and computer terminal meant the difference between helping people or having to turn them away. I saw such a look of satisfaction on Jim's face after he handed out the checks, and I realized what this man and the organization he represented was all about: caring about the needs and the well-being of others. Jim has a heart for others. I asked him about it, and he very quietly said this was something that had always been at the very foundation of the Dr. P. Phillips organization, sharing the fruits of their labors with others. He has been the guiding hand in so very many endeavors for the good of the community, as you know. And so I am honored to be counted among Jim's friends. Jim, Rita, and I have been through many twists and turns on the road of my own career, and so it is with pleasure now that I'm able to be a part of this beautiful milestone in his distinguished career of unselfish service to our community. Jim, may you be happy and blessed as you embark on this new chapter of your life. And now it is time to bring here a man who knows a thing or two about blessings in life, the Reverend Jim Henry. Jim Henry has been Jim Hinson's pastor at First Baptist Church for 30 years. Brother Henry has twice been honored to serve as the president of the Southern Baptist Convention and has himself recently retired, but is busier than ever. Reverend Henry.
Thank you so much, Marla, and what a privilege it is to be able to celebrate with a dear friend this very special occasion. Jim, when I left First Baptist, they made me the pastor emeritus. I didn't know what emeritus was, and so I looked it up, and it's made up of two Latin words, which means he's done. But you know, as I look across this great group of people tonight who gathered to say thanks to a man who's touched this community in so many ways, I notice also there's people that all different kind of backgrounds here, which is very significant, including the religious community. I saw Leon Hanley here tonight, and that's very significant. When I saw Leon, I thought about this little kid next door. When we came to Orlando, this little boy drove up, a real gregarious, outgoing kid. He drove up on his bicycle, asked us all kind of questions. And so I thought, well, this is the first opportunity I have. Maybe this will be the first ones that can get to come to First Baptist. So after he got through questioning, grilling me, I said, well, tell me, are your parents Christians? He said, oh, no, they're Presbyterians. Well, you know, Jim is known for a lot of different things and a lot of touches in a lot of people's lives. Each one of you here represents some significant impact in his life and in our community. That's why you're here tonight to pay tribute to Jim Hinson. And so as you come from different places with different thoughts and appreciations, and I do the same because I've watched him through these years. But let me bring just one other perspective before I lead us in prayer. That is, about 30 years ago, Jeanette and I were happily ministering in Nashville, Tennessee. And a group of people from Orlando, Florida began to show up at our church there. In that group of people was a man named Jim Hinson. And Jim Hinson was a part of those responsible for us coming to Orlando. When Jim was on that search team that brought Jeanette and I and our family to Orlando, that became a very significant part of our journey of life. And I know it was a big step for them to take a young preacher and, in a sense, bet on the fact that he could lead a wonderful church. And Jim, I want to say thank you to you again, because not only did you help bring Jeanette and I here, and God used you for that, but through the years, you've been steadfast, a friend, and you always showed up for me and for us and our church when we needed you. And I'd like to say thank you very much. Now would you join me as we have a word of blessing on our occasion tonight. Dear Father, thank you so much for showing up. Showing up in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. Showing up when people were sick. Showing up when the people were dead and you raised them. Showing up when people were being ignored and you reached out to them. Showing up for the poor, the widow, the children. You always showed up. You showed up at the cross and you showed up on Easter. We thank you for showing up. And tonight we thank you for showing up at this glad occasion. We know that you're the Lord who loves life, and you said, I'll give it to you more abundantly. And you showed up 2,000 years ago to do your first miracle at a celebration of joy and happiness at a wedding. So we don't have to ask for your presence tonight. We know that you're present. And we know that as we celebrate the life of 50 years of commitment to ministering and helping people, thousands and thousands of lives that you used Jim Hinson to be a channel and a vessel for. You showed up in Jim Hinson's life. And so tonight, we say thank you to you for your servant, Jim Hinson. And for all of us who know and love you, it's very important for us to hear you say one thing at the end of the road. Well done, good and faithful servant. And I believe Jim's going to hear that from you. Tonight, we as friends want to say, Jim Hinson, well done, good and faithful servant. So in your stead, Father, we will salute your servant and son, our friend. So for good food, for laughter, for food, for fellowship, for memories, and for new starts, for yesterdays and todays and tomorrows, we thank you in the wonderful name of Jesus Christ, our Savior, Lord. Amen.
And now I would like to invite a man of honor and integrity to the stage to join me. Reverend Jim Henry is shaking his hand right now. Would Jim Hinson please come to the podium, along with the Honorable Mayor of Orlando, Buddy Dyer. Please come forward.
Jim, it's truly a privilege for me to be able to honor one of Orlando's greatest citizens. And I think those that are willing to come out and pay tribute to you says a lot about your character and a lot about what you've been doing for the last 50 years. And I just hope after I've served as mayor for 50 years, I can get half as... You heard the mayor 50 years part, right? You got it, everybody got that. I know everybody in this audience has a personal testimony about the good that you have done. I'm going to steal a little Jim Hughes' thunder and say one of the more significant things that's happened while I was in office is the push for 3 new community venues. And the day that you announced the biggest gift to the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center really gave momentum to that effort. So I thank you for that and millions of other things that you've done in the last 50 years, and I've brought a few little tokens. I have a proclamation from the City of Orlando. Whereas J.A. Jim Hinson, and it says J.A. Jim Hinson throughout the rest of this, but I'm going to say Jim if that's okay with you, to shorten that a little bit, has spent a half a century in service to Dr. Phillips Charities, rising from bookkeeper and internal auditor to chairman of the board, president, and chief executive officer. And whereas Jim has helped make Central Florida the thriving and diverse region it is today by dedicating the past 50 years to improving the lives of all the people who call it home, through his support of the free enterprise system, children and families, education, the arts, community programs that help people help themselves. And whereas Jim has been instrumental in coordinating the annexation of Fair Villa into the city of Orlando. And whereas Jim has served generously as a member and officer on numerous, I don't know how that Fair Villa, I know you did that, but officer on numerous boards of directors, including Florida Citrus Sports, University of Central Florida Foundation, Metropolitan YMCA, Dr. Phillips YMCA, Junior Achievement, United Arts. And whereas Jim has worked tirelessly to preserve, guide, and protect the Dr. Phillips community that has grown up from the citrus holdings of the Dr. P. Phillips family. And whereas Jim has worked tirelessly to further the philanthropic intent of the Phillips family through the Dr. P. Phillips Foundation and Dr. Phillips Inc. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, hereby do proclaim Thursday, April 10th, 2008, as J.A. Jim Hinson Day in the City of Orlando in honor of the life and work of Jim Hinson. In addition, and Scott Maxwell ribs me a little bit when I give out keys to the city because I think they shouldn't be given out freely, but should be given out to people who have truly contributed to our community. I have for you a key to the city of Orlando.
Well, it is a high honor to be here tonight. In fact, I can't recall a time when I have had a greater honor than to be here and announce this proclamation on behalf of Orange County. I wanted to take just a moment because I see so many of you that are from around Orange County, but not necessarily the Dr. Phillips area. And you know Jim personally, and you know of his professional accomplishments. But for those of us who live in and around Dr. Phillips, he's also known as our knight in shining armor. And you may not know that about him. I don't think there's anybody in Dr. Phillips who doesn't know or respect Jim and the great work that he has done to protect the integrity of the Dr. Phillips community. So I just wanted a personal recognition living out there. He doesn't step in and intervene very often in the governmental process, but I really tell you, when he does, he never loses. I could learn a thing or two from him. It is now my privilege to announce this proclamation. Whereas J.A. Jim Hinson has spent half a century in the service of the Dr. Phillips Charities, and whereas he began his career as a bookkeeper and rose in the organization to become the leader, the chairman of the board, the president, and the chief executive officer. And whereas Jim Hinson has contributed greatly to the success of Central Florida region through his dedication to the Dr. Phillips Charities and its missions to help people help themselves. And whereas Jim Hinson has worked on the planning and development of the Dr. Phillips community in southwest Orange County, the first ever planned community in Central Florida. And in doing so, was involved in the rewriting of the Orange County zoning ordinance. If anybody's read that, I'm not sure that that's really an accomplishment, but I'm sure when he wrote it, it was great. Whereas Jim Hinson coordinated with Orange County towards the development of the Dr. P. Phillips Community Park to serve the residents of the Dr. Phillips area. And whereas Jim Hinson for the past 50 years has expanded the philanthropic intent of the Phillips family in Central Florida, not only through his work with Dr. Phillips Charities, but also by assisting in the establishment of the Community Foundation of Central Florida, a first-of-its-kind partnership between funding foundations in the area to increase benefits to the local community. And whereas Jim Hinson was instrumental in coordinating full support of the Dr. Phillips Charities and the YMCA to develop Safe Start, a program that teaches infants and toddlers how to survive in water, preventing drowning. Today, Safe Start is a self-sustaining program that has trained more than 8,000 children and is documented as having saved more than 25 young lives. And whereas Jim Hinson is a champion of the Central Florida community, ensuring the success of many local projects such as the Howard Phillips Center for Children and Families, the Dr. P. Phillips Hospital, the Howard Phillips Eminent Scholar Chair, and the Dr. P. Phillips School of Real Estate at the University of Central Florida, and the Dr. P. Phillips Orlando Performing Arts Center. And whereas Jim Hinson has served generously as a member and officer on numerous boards of directors, including the Committee of 101 of Orange County, the Metropolitan YMCA, and the Dr. Phillips YMCA, and the Orange County Citizens Commission for Children, Junior Achievement, and United Hearts. And whereas Jim Hinson is to be honored upon his retirement on Thursday, April 10, 2008. Now therefore I, on behalf of Mayor Richard T. Crotty, by virtue of his authority, do hereby proclaim Thursday, April 10, 2008 as Jim Hinson Day in Orange County, Florida, and extend to Jim Hinson our best wishes for a rich, rewarding, and well-deserved retirement. Done and ordered this 10th day of April, 2010. Signed and ordered by Richard T. Crotty, our mayor.
First of all, congratulations, Jim. And what we do in the sheriff's office, I can't proclaim days like the mayor, and the commissioner. I can't give blessings like Jim Henry. I can get in trouble. But this is what we call a sheriff's citation. And what we have for Jim is it says, the sheriff is honored to present you with his sheriff's citation medal in recognition of your extraordinary devotion to our community. You have mastered the art of leadership and have demonstrated unwavering support throughout your 50 years of unsurpassed service and dedication. Your conscientiousness and determination to do the right thing is evidenced by all the work that you have done. You have left a lasting impression on the youth of our community and unprecedented 25 years of involvement with the YMCA. Your loyalty to both your work and your friends is received as a true blessing. Your strength of character, compassion, and commitment to public service embodies and embraces the spirit of our profession and has earned you this Sheriff's Citation Award, and also Jim and his medal.
Good evening. My name is John Hellenmeyer, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Orlando Regional Healthcare System. And tonight, I'm here, as all of you are, to honor one of the true giants and community builders in Central Florida, Jim Hinson. 25 years ago, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be recruited by Orlando Regional to help build a hospital in the southwest part of Orlando, rapidly growing at the time. And I remember the first time I drove down with some of the executives at Orlando Regional, they took me down Turkey Lake Road to an orange grove and drove out in a Jeep, and the sand was so beautiful and deep, the Jeep got stuck. So I thought, well, somebody's got a real vision of what might happen here. And it wasn't long that I learned Jim Hinson was one of the people behind the vision for Southwest Orange County. Along the way, Jim provided me really great counsel on a number of issues. He made me appreciate the significance of what was happening in Southwest Orange County, and the importance of having not just a hospital, but the right kind of hospital there. Our hospital was built on land that was some of the original orange groves of the Dr. Phillips Inc. And I think because of that, Jim and Gene Johnson and many other people from Dr. Phillips always had kind of a special connection to Sand Lake Hospital. And I'm sure it pleased the leadership to know that land that Dr. Phillips originally acquired was being used for such a high purpose. I also had the privilege of serving as the first administrator of Sand Lake Hospital. I remember the day we opened, I think we had 18 patients and we had 150 beds. And I really wondered, what am I doing here? But I believed in the vision, and things developed, and as I look back today at what's happening at what is now the Dr. P. Phillips Hospital, I'm amazed, and it's really been an exciting time. But I will tell you, without the vision and leadership and support of the Dr. Phillips organization, and especially Jim, it would not have happened. Along the way, as things came up about the area and the developments, I didn't hesitate to go talk to Jim periodically, and he gave me very good advice. Always candid, straight up, sometimes what I wanted to hear, and sometimes I learned something, but always positive. In late 2006, I had the real special pleasure of announcing that Orlando Regional Sand Lake Hospital was changing its name to the Dr. P. Phillips Hospital. We felt like the Dr. P. Phillips organization had its hand over everything that happened at Sand Lake for many years, and it was so nice to honor them in tribute for the years of generous support and commitment that the organization had made to the hospital. And I can tell you, Jim was a guiding hand in much of that. Their financial support was important, and I often learned that when you go to foundations, you ask for money. And I remember a few years back, we had not done anything with Dr. Phillips for a while. Saw Jim at an event, and he said, you know, John, we really like Orlando Regional. Why don't you come back and see us? And it took John Mozart about 10 minutes to figure out how to go down and see Jim. Today, we're on the brink of a new era at Dr. P. Phillips Hospital. Late this year, we will dedicate a major new expansion of this hospital. It will become, move from 150 beds to 290 beds. 150 beds is a small hospital, 300 beds is much bigger. And one thing that really says that the Dr. Phillips people really understood what was going to happen down there. Sand Lake Hospital this year will see over 90,000 visits in its emergency department, the most of any hospital in Central Florida, which is remarkable when you think about it. So it's serving a lot of people, including many visitors who come to Central Florida. You know, these realities are all part of the vision and acknowledgement of our early advisor, Jim Hinson. And at this time, as we prepare to open the beautiful new expansion of Dr. P. Phillips Hospital, I look forward to asking all of you to visit the garden room, a very special area. And Jim, if you would come forward for a minute. Jim, I'm pleased to tell you that the garden room, which will be a very special healing place, serenity and peace hopefully for people in times of great stress, is going to be named in your honor. And the said in the room. The Garden Room is named in honor of James A. Hinson, a visionary and a leader who helped make possible the life-saving care experience within these walls. Jim, I appreciate what the Dr. Phillips organization done, but I especially appreciate your time and energy and your support to me, and thank you so much.
There hasn't been an individual that has had a larger impact in the Central Florida community than Jim Hinson. It's very easy for me to talk about someone who has had such a positive impact and foresight for our community. In the early 1990s, I had a view of Dr. Phillips, Inc. from the outside looking in. And since 2003, I've had the bird's eye view from the inside looking out. The more involved I become with Jim Hinson, the greater the respect and the prouder I am to be a small part of Dr. Phillips. Jim has shepherded the Dr. Phillips Company into what it is today. And I'm not sure everybody realizes, but Dr. Phillips has probably contributed in the neighborhood of $100 million to this community. A company that produces cash. Yeah, that's $100 million is a lot of dollars. A company that produces cash and uses many different organizations and agencies as a delivery system of programs and buildings to do great work, to build strong kids and strong families and strong communities. The number of agencies and organizations range in scope, from those serving the homeless to the hospitals, from seniors to kids, from eyeglasses to literacy, to the performing arts to the YMCA. Jim Hinson has had his fingerprints all over these organizations. Jim has had a strong commitment to values. What you've been hearing tonight is about values. Jim's honesty is as long as the day is long. And sometimes people are not ready for the honesty conversation. This honesty value sometimes comes out in the form of, he's hard. And I didn't hear anybody talk about that he's tough. But he is tough. Jim holds his team extremely accountable for producing results. And he also expects, when he's investing in organizations, that they are also held accountable for those high expectations for producing results. Jim's very consistent. It isn't about how the wind's blowing today or what's politically correct today. Jim's been a statesman. When it's not popular, Jim stays the course. He's always stayed the course. There's a couple of conversations I can remember in the 1990s about this honesty conversation. And some of you have had that honesty conversation before. In the 1990s, it was a very good conversation, but he let me know that I wasn't ready, that we weren't ready, and that I had to go back to the drawing boards to be able to do a better presentation. That changed us, that changed the Central Florida Y tremendously. And then being not very quick and not very smart on my feet, can you believe I had to have another one of those conversations? And it was in the mid-90s. It was about 1995, 1996. I had to have another one of those conversations. But this time it was with the 2x4. And it did get my attention. And that has changed my life. And when we talk about changing lives, Jim Hinson has had a huge impact on my life. It's been 15 years that we have known one another and worked together. And it's only been the past 4 or 5 years that we've been on the board. But Jim has had a major impact in my life. And when you talk about leaving a legacy, is that they were asking a group of seniors once, what was the most important thing in life? People start talking about it's not about bricks and mortar, it's not about programs, it's not about all these things, but it's about investing in somebody's life. Jim Hinson certainly has invested in a lot of people's lives. I can see him through the room tonight of how he's touched everybody in this room. He certainly has had an impact on my life, and he's made me a whole different person. That legacy, what is important is that you invest your time helping people grow. So that tough conversation that we had was really about a conversation to help people, help leaders become better leaders. And he's had many of those conversations as I look around this room. we talk about leaving a legacy. There's another legacy that we talked a little bit about. It's called a Safe Start program. And we were having another one of those meetings. And all of a sudden, Jim starts talking about, do you know how many kids drown a year who are under the age of 4? And I said, no, not really, Jim. He said, well, do you know it's the leading cause of death for foreigners? And I said, well, I've heard something like that. And he said, and he went on with some other statistics about, do you know that kids that are divorced their families end up in divorce, and their families come apart? And you know how many near drownings there are? Now he's starting to roll out all these different things, and I was saying, I should know this, because I'm the Y guy, right? I'm the guy that knows about swimming and aquatics. And then he says, how would you like to meet? That was kind of a question, knowing that I needed to do this. How would you like to meet with a group called Infant Swim Research? That they have been working for the past 20 years of helping children survive if they fall into water. And children under the age of 4. The leading cause of death for children under the age of 4 is drowning. And how would you like to work with a group of people that we could really work on this problem of eradicating drownings for 4 and unders? And so we met, and we met with the Infant Swim Research, we met with the Dr. Phillips Foundation, and we met with the YMCA folks. And it was one of those magical experiences where all 3 groups came together. And when you look around the room, you think of all the different partnerships that Dr. Phillips Foundation, Dr. Phillips Inc., and Jim has been involved in. It's how he's brought these partners together in a win-win situation. It's been remarkable. You think about the infant swim research, and you think about the 4-year-olds that have been saved. Teresa stole my thunder when she came up and told me that over the past 5 years, we've had 8,000 children go through that program. And we've had 25 letters from parents who said that their children had fallen in water and they were able to do the Safe Start behavior modification where they were able to turn over on their back and float to the side. And the parents said they would hate to think what might have happened if they had not enrolled their children in that Safe Start program. So when we talk about legacy, and Jim's legacy, he has touched thousands of kids and thousands of people. He's had a huge impact that people won't see. When we think of the impact Jim has had, it's far-reaching. The financial resources have been great, but Jim has had an impact on how we operate, how we plan, and how we train. And even in the Safe Start program, we think that we can take that program and take it on a national basis, where we can roll out Safe Start across the country. And someday, like polio, that we could eradicate something as simple as drowning. Jim, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. You have made a difference in my life. Now I'd like to introduce the man who's been driving the performing arts. That's done a wonderful job raising all that money, especially from the Dr. Phillips Foundation. Jim Pugh.
Thank you, Jim. When Dr. Phillips and Della Phillips came here in the early 1900s, they were really very unique, unusual people. They had perseverance that some of you citrus people can certainly understand. They planted lots of citrus. They went through a terrible freeze, lost virtually everything. They went away, made some more money, came back, and did it all over again. And so that kind of perseverance is sort of indicative of what's happened in this great community of ours. They love the arts. There's a lot of stories of the Phillips family entertaining on their patio, and Jim Hinson's talked to me many times about how they love the arts and how they supported the arts. But you know, the genius of it all for Dr. Phillips was hiring Jim Hinson, and we all know Jim's a brilliant guy, and very smart, hardworking, all those attributes. But what Jim Hinson did was unusual for a charity anywhere in the world. A lot of people who run charities would go invest their money at 4.5%, maybe that's low, Jim, and they would go play golf. But what he did is he stayed the business. He stayed the course, and he made the fortune that he gave away. I mean, it's an incredible story of what he did. And he and I sat down a month or so ago, and I wanted, for my own understanding, I wanted to know how he did it, and what was the, what was the modus operandi that made that all happen. I have no clue what the Phillips family left, but I do know this, and Jim Ferber mentioned that you have given away over $100 million to this community. That's an incredible feat. We're so grateful. We're equally grateful to you and to Rita and your long-standing marriage and your wonderful times together in this community. We've enjoyed having you and being a part of the Central Florida family. When Buddy Dyer got elected, whenever that was, Buddy and I sat in his campaign office the night before the election, and we talked about the vision for this community and what we needed to go to the next step. And he said to me, I want to do the Performing Arts Center. They've been talking about this for 20 years. We can do this. And I said, okay. And I somehow got the job. We early on did a financial plan that included $130 million from the county, $128 million from the city, some state money, and Tony's here. We thank you, Tony, for that. And the big part of that was that we were going to raise $110 million privately. People looked at that and said, you can't do that. And there was some skeptics out there. But when we went to Jim Hinson and to the Dr. Phillips Charities, and it was a part because they were ready to do something significant. And so Jim, we hardly walked through the door and introduced ourselves when Jim said, I would like to make the lead gift for this wonderful Performing Arts Center. And as you well know, it's history now that they've given us $25 million. Now, what that meant was that instantly we were a reality. And the people of the county and the city knew that we could do it. And so today we have now raised $90 million of that $110 million. I know there are a lot of good Baptists in the room, and we love you, but I would like, and there's John Wesley, the famous Methodist theologian. He talked about something that just I can't get out of my mind. It just keeps staying with me, and it applies so much to Jim and Rita. And John Wesley said, do all the good you can in all the ways you can for all the people you can as long and ever as you can. And Jim, that fits you so well. Thank you.
Now, in every community, there is a tax collector, and in very few communities, however, is there a beloved tax collector. So would you please make welcome and recognize your favorite tax collector, Earl K. Wood, everyone. Favorite tax Thank you. Now, have you ever wondered how Jim Hinson got his start? Well, this might answer a few questions, but then again, it might also raise a few questions.
It's not exactly the little house on the prairie, but a stately wooden structure that provides the backdrop for the humble beginning of the Hinson family of Cochran, Georgia. This stern-looking group passed on something you can't see here, a mischievous sense of humor. You may have heard Jim tell the story of how his grandmother was a nun who married a lord. Given that his grandmother's maiden name was Nunn and that his grandfather's name was Lord, this story is technically true. Another true story is how Jim got his name. In 1937, when Lily Mae and William Baxley Hinson saw their new baby boy, Jim's father wanted to name him Anthony Adverse, after a tragic character whose life was beset by misery and, yes, adversity. Jim's mother refused the name Anthony Adverse Hinson, but compromised, naming her son James Anthony Hinson. Not being saddled with the name or spirit of adversity, Jim's childhood was a happy one, shared by his older brother Bill and doting sister Joan in Decatur, Georgia. As a young man, Jim entertained the idea of becoming a professional baseball player and briefly got his start as a pitcher for a semi-pro team. He then decided to complete his 6-month Army obligation at Fort Jackson before settling down at the Atlanta Division of University of Georgia. Jim's pursuit of a higher education was cut short by an offer of employment by Gene Johnson. Gene offered Jim the position of head bookkeeper and payroll clerk at the Dr. Phillips Companies in sunny Florida, and it proved to be an offer Jim couldn't refuse. Jim was told that if he worked hard and proved himself at Dr. Phillips, there would be plenty of room for advancement. Well, you know the rest of the story. He did work hard, he did prove himself, and there was indeed plenty of room for advancement. And by the way, Jim later continued his education at Rollins College. In 1985, Gene Johnson reflected on his decision to bring Jim to Orlando with a letter to Jim's mother, which read, "It has been more than 27 years since our company lured your son Jim away from your home in 1957. At this time, between Mother's Day and Father's Day, I am reminded of the outstanding job you and Bill did in rearing Jim during the formative years. The values you instilled in him have served him well in developing to a mature, outstanding leader in his company and community. Jim's honesty, integrity, sincerity, understanding, and unswerving loyalty have helped our company to prosper and provide good employment and security to many others. His ability to develop skills and his business acumen belie his modest higher education. He's far more valuable than 2 PhDs. Not having the privilege of being closer to you, I felt it was overdue for me to mention my admiration for your son, James Anthony. Most sincerely, H.E. Johnson, Chairman of the Board." Others in the community also share Gene Johnson's high regard.
Jim Hinson has been such a remarkable leader in this community and a great friend to Boys and Girls Clubs. He's certainly brought all of us together with a vision of collaboration and cooperation, and business and civic leaders together have mobilized to strengthen our community. One thing I can tell you I always loved about Jim, you could see the twinkle in his eye when he came in a Boys and Girls Club. He loved the kids, he loved the environment, he wanted better for them. And Jim, we just appreciate you and we want only the best for you in your retirement.
Jim, on behalf of the Central Florida YMCA, I want to thank you so much for what you've done for us over the years. You know, in the past 15 years, we've grown from the 35th largest Y in the United States to now we are the 9th largest Y in the United States. We couldn't have done this without your time and your generosity. I just want you to know how much we at the Y appreciate all you've done for us. Thank you very much.
I am standing in the Dr. Phillips Citrus exhibit to extend my sincere appreciation to Jim Hinson for his dedication for the preservation of this important piece of history, and also to Dr. Phillips Charities. This is a marvelous exhibit on the history of citrus in Orange County, and this was made possible because of your foresight in making this history important. Thank you so much, Jim.
It is difficult to imagine this community without the dedication, leadership, and courage of Jim Hinson. Several years ago, a program called Safe Start was initiated through Jim's leadership. Safe Start is a program that teaches infants and young children how to survive in and around the water. And since it began just in Central Florida, over 7,000 families have been served and 19 little lives have been saved. Jim, on behalf of those 7,000 children and the 19 little lives that you have saved, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Jim, all of your friends at UCF congratulate you on an amazing career of leadership and service in our community. We're most grateful for the wonderful support that you and the Dr. Phillips Foundation have given to UCF over the years, culminating with the creation of funding for the Dr. P. Phillips School of Real Estate in our College of Business Administration. Within it, we find the Howard Phillips Eminent Scholar Chair. There's an Institute for Education and Research in Real Estate, and great scholarship support for our students. Thank you so much for your amazing leadership in our community over these many years.
In 1961, Howard Phillips helped establish junior achievement here in Orange County. Jim Hinson has been carrying the torch for JA for the past 20 years. He has sat on our board of directors, he's received our Most Outstanding Volunteer Award, and he has received the Spirit of Achievement Award. Dr. Phillips and Jim have been inspiring junior achievement and challenging us to reach more children about financial literacy, workforce readiness, and above all, free enterprise. Jim, on behalf of junior achievement, congratulations on your retirement.
The growing campus of Dr. P. Phillips Hospital sits on land which was Doc Phillips's original working grove. Our mission here is to improve the health and quality of life of our community, and through his lifetime of service to the Dr. Phillips organizations, we believe that's exactly what Jim Hinson has done. So Jim, we thank you for your vision and your dedication to our community, and on behalf of all of us at Dr. P. Phillips Hospital and Orlando Regional Healthcare, congratulations and all the best in your retirement.
A great day for the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center was when we had the chance to visit with Jim Hinson. Jim Pugh, Rita Bornstein, and I were called to his office to visit and talk about the Arts Center, and little did we know that was the moment when we were named. And Jim was so gracious in his leadership to name the facility. We have a great name to stand behind, and it's really because of Jim Hinson and the Dr. Phillips Charity. So congratulations, Jim and Rita, in your retirement, and best of luck.
Asked what Jim believed to have been his greatest achievement at Dr. Phillips, he replied simply, to have been a good steward for the Phillips family, growing its assets and continuing its legacy with honor and integrity. While he will now act as a consultant to Dr. Phillips and remain on its board, he will also explore new horizons, pursue new adventures, and reach new heights. After all, with Jim Hinson as your co-pilot, the sky's the limit.
I can't imagine how popular $100 million can make it. And you know they've got several $100 million left over. But the new guy taking over is a lawyer named Rob. Great name for a lawyer, isn't it? After all these big dogs up here, it's time for a little dog, you know. Big dogs don't always win. Lee Trevino was over in England, British Open, and he was interviewed, and he said, the big dogs don't always win, you know. Last night I was in this pub, a fellow walked in and said, who owns this 200-pound Mastiff outside? Well, said, I do. Why? I said, my dog just killed your dog. So what kind of dog you got? I said, I got a Chihuahua. How'd you kill my dog? Got stuck in his throat. You better be careful. There are a lot of little dogs around looking at you. I was, by the way, I finally found out who brought Jim Henry to town. I've been wondering all these years. I thought it was Henry Parker who'd had enough of those Baptists. Wanted some relief. Tom Kearney I call Jim Henry the Pied Piper of Pine Street. He piped those people right off of Pine Street, took them on the crossing, and you did a great job. There's a lot of sin around here. Jim was raised a Baptist, as was I. Being raised a Baptist doesn't keep you from sinning. It just ruins it for you. But it's nice to see Jim Henry again. Doesn't he look natural? You did a good job on him, didn't you? That's a nice suit Jim has, you know. He's been getting his hair cut at Guy Black's funeral all these years. I think he's buying his clothes there, too. Good looking. I've got some notes here. I was asked to speak because downtown we have a little group that gets together, and we have coffee in the morning, and we tell a lot of good stories, but a lot of them are ruined, you know. A lot of good stories are ruined by eyewitnesses. But Hinson came along and he said, I'm a celebrity. I'm going to visit with you, and if I like you, I'll stay. Well, apparently he liked it because he's still there, and he always gets there early to get the seat where he can see the young ladies. I never knew he was so interested in breathing. It's only inspirations that inspire him, apparently, not explorations. But Jim, nice event here. I didn't know you knew this many people who could find their way here. The Loafers Club, I call it, and it's really a nice group. Let me see what we learned a number of things about Hinson. First of all, we learned that he was from Georgia. Now, everyone who's born in Georgia knows that if a boy child doesn't start crawling toward the Florida line, they drown him. As soon as they get the money saved up, they move to Florida. We used to say when I was growing up down in Lakeland, you know, Florida was the smallest state in the southeast. We'd say, well, we're going to hit 1 million if Atlanta holds out. Here he came from Atlanta. Did you see the picture of him on a motorcycle? He looked like Grease. Remember that? Not the movie, the substance. But he turned out pretty well. You know, he was born to poor but proud parents. After his birth, they were still poor. I don't think they were ever proud again. And he moved to Florida. He tells me it changed the average mentality of each state. That's what all Georgians think. But once here, he stayed. And I went to the University of Georgia. We explained to him that if he puts a Georgia diploma in the back window of his car, he could park in the handicapped parking lot. I'm not sure he's tried it yet, but you have to explain it to him several times. We have an expression that if you see a good-looking girl on the arm of a University of Georgia man, you know what it's called? A tattoo. Someone explain that to Hinson. Rita can do that. But I want you to know that I never have liked anyone who was better looking than I am, who was nicer than I am, who was smarter than I am, who had prettier hair, and who had more money to spend. But Hinson, I dislike you the least. And I want you to know how proud we are of you. We are really, really proud of you because you have accomplished more with less talent than anybody else. God bless you. Rita, you got twice as much husband and half as much money. Good luck, you two. Squire.
Most of you may know that Anchorman Centerfed and Dr. Phillips have been partners for well longer than the 50 years that Jim has been with the organization. It's been an outstanding relationship for us, and hopefully the same for Dr. Phillips. I'm here tonight to congratulate Jim on his 50 years. Thank him for all of the many wonderful things he's done for the Orlando community. One other thing, if my gift is still underneath here, we're trying to figure out how to top these proclamations, and keys to the city, and all of those things. And we weren't really sure how to do it until we got the help of Congressman Rick Keller's office. They were able to help us get this letter that was dated April 9, addressed to Jim Hinson, that I'd just like to read to everybody. Dear Jim, congratulations on your retirement as Chief Executive Officer with Dr. Phillips Inc. after 50 years of service. As you celebrate this milestone, I hope you will take pride in your accomplishments and dedicated service. Laura and I send our best wishes for an enjoyable retirement. Sincerely, George W. Bush.
Marla says it's all mine now. I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know how anyone could have a more outstanding retirement dinner than I've just received here tonight. It's just unbelievable, and to have the wonderful talent of Davis Gaines here as a surprise entertainment for us. I know that it was a blessing to me, and I think it was probably a blessing to all of you. God gives us talents. I'm sure Davis must have passed by at least 5 or 6 times when he got his dose of talents, because he is truly outstanding and certainly the greatest phantom that they've ever heard. So Davis, thank you very much again. Now, they keep talking about 50 years. My goodness, it feels like only 49. And the successes that you've been told about tonight are attributed to me in many ways, but the only way they can happen are through the help of so many other people. And the two very special people in my life as far as business is concerned was Howard Phillips and Gene Johnson. And neither one of them are with us tonight. I wish desperately they were, but they are not. But at least we have Gene's wife, Mabel, and I'd like for you to recognize Mabel Johnson. Mabel and Gene sort of took me in when I came to Orlando. Gene found me a place to stay. Mabel taught me to eat green beans and carrot cake. I'll never forget those times. They were extremely kind to me. But in the business world, Howard and Gene get the credit for anything that I might be taking and enjoying tonight. It's all because of them. At Dr. Phillips, we sort of look at ourselves as a family. And tonight we have our staff with us and also a number of retirees. And I'd like for them to stand and for you to recognize the staff and certain of the retired employees that were able to make it tonight. So please stand and don't be bashful. Go ahead and stand up. But Howard left everything to charity, and that's what we're able to be stewards over today and to be able to do the things in the community that we're able to do. And yes, sometimes people might think we're a little hard, but I don't look at it as being hard. I look at it as being responsible. And for the money that we earn, and we do have to earn it before we give it away, we want to make sure that it's well used when we do donate it to worthy charities. And there are so many worthy charities and real needs in this community, and we're just really pleased to be a part of that. Tonight, I'm sort of going away, but hopefully not too far. And we're leaving in good hands the Dr. Phillips organization. There are so many people that came together and worked extremely hard to make this evening the success that I feel it has been. Those out front and those behind the scenes, and I can't list them all. I'm not going to try to. I'd leave someone out, but we should recognize them, and I want to recognize especially Ann Manley, who has done an outstanding job of shepherding this along. And Ann, come up here and join me for a minute, please. She's done such a wonderful job. I want to present these roses to her. And the only other person that well, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to back up a minute. I have 3 sons. One's in the Coast Guard in California, and he couldn't be here tonight. But my sons, Tony and his wife, and Scott and his wife are here, and I am just so pleased that they were able to make this such a blessing to me. And the last thing that I would say is for my sweet wife, Rita, who has done so much to make my life so pleasurable, and she's such a wonderful lady and talented beyond belief. Thanks for all your hard work, too. I hope you've enjoyed the evening. It has just been something unbelievable for me. I will never, ever forget it, and I have been blessed beyond belief. So thank you very much.